Strawberry Hills Studio presents Samurais of Sound. And I am your sensei, Karen Strassman. So I get a lot of communications, emails, messages, social media messages, fan mail, and a lot of people reach out to me and say, I want to do voiceover. I want to get into voiceover. How do I start doing voiceover? And the first thing to consider is what kinds of voiceover. There are so many kinds of voiceover in our current market. There's a lot of voiceover that people know about, anime, animation, video games. But there's also a lot of narration out there, narration for documentaries, narration for industrials. There's books on tape. Audible is a big, big market right now. There's still radio. And there's social media, voiceover, and there's probably so much more that I'm not even mentioning. And there's dubbing. So here we go. There's even more. There's dubbing where there's, say a Netflix film that's, made in Spain, that was shot in Barcelona, and that they want to sell in the American market on Netflix. So they send it over to the United States or even there, and Anglophone actors dub that into English, and then you guys get to see it in Netflix in English. There's ADR, which is a very lucrative area of voiceover, very hard to get into, where the voiceover artists are in the studio. Often there's 4 of them or 10 of them or 15 of us, and we're literally doing all of the background voices because when they're making movies, the background actors don't speak. They talk like that so that they can get the sound from the lead actors. So in the studio afterwards for television and film, there are a group of actors that come into the studio and do all of the post-production voices, from the lead waiter to the people in the crowd at the football stadium, to the announcers on TV. And I do a lot of that. So there's all different kinds of voiceover in a lot of different areas. And I have some friends who just love doing audiobooks. I have some friends who just, love doing anime. I have some friends who are commercials. I didn't even mention commercials, which is a whole other big, big deal. And I have some friends who make an awful lot of money just doing commercials. Voiceover for Super Bowl commercials, voiceover for, internet commercials. So voiceover is a whole universe in and of itself. So one thing to consider is, what are the areas of voiceover that are compelling to you? What do you want to learn more about? What do you want to watch more? And what fields are most compelling to you? A lot of people ask me, how did I personally get into voiceover? And every single voiceover artist I know had and has a different path into it. And there's not like one well-trodden path. The thing that I would say to everybody is get training, get acting training. Because in the global picture, voiceover it's acting. Whether you're doing commercials, whether you're doing, internet stuff, cartoons, it's acting. And so I say to everybody, the most important thing about becoming a voiceover artist is acting training. But people do ask me how I got into voiceover. And I had my own unusual path into it. Ever since I was a very little girl, I have just been passionate about acting. Just ever since I was a very little girl, I was fascinated with being, watching the actors on TV, going to plays, and I made up plays in my basement from my recalcitrant parents who weren't so enthusiastic about watching all those plays in the basement. As actors and as voiceover actors and as on-camera artists, we are about touching into the human spirit, touching the human soul, bringing people together over human quirkiness, human realities. And that has always been my passion, and is literally being able to touch people, whether it's to touch people's hearts, whether it's to make people giggle, whether it's to bring out our human quirkiness, or tell stories that bring us together as human beings. So we're constantly working for different clients and studios and production companies, but we work for ourselves. So it's not like somebody who is, works for a company. It's not like an animator who is hired by a company and they work for Disney or they work for Pixar. I'm told that my W-2s at the end of the year by my tax guy are insane because I work for so many different people. It's a lot of work for my tax people. But we, as voiceover artists, we are sole proprietors. So I am my own company, which means I am my own product, because my voice and everything I do, I am my own product, but I am also my own PR person. I'm my own agent. I am my own accountant. Now, that's not to say that I don't have several different agents, that I don't have a PR person, that I don't have a booking person, and that I don't work with a tax accountant and people like that. But I'm the president of my own company, and I'm my own product. So there's not a president over me telling me what to do. There's not, I literally don't have somebody above me that I'm working for. I am my own brand, and I have to take care of everything, which means I take care of my own networking. And even I manage my agents and my managers. They just want to do voiceover. People are like, I just want to do voiceover. I want to, I want to get paid to make funny voices and play. And that is a tremendously big part of it. And I always tell people, you never want to lose that enthusiasm. My goal is to walk into the studio every time I go into the studio, whether it's my home studio or whether it's, Disney or the biggest studios, in the world. So to empower up and coming voiceover artists with a sense of your own business, a sense of being a proprietor of your business and of your art, and knowing that you get to call the shots and that you get to make the decisions and you get to decide, what you want to do, what's compelling to you, what kind of stuff you want to do, and also how you run your business and how you take responsibility for the people you actually hire, whether it's somebody you hire to produce your demo reel, which is something that all of us in the business have to do. We have to find the right person or company to produce our demo reel. And that's something that you want to do your research with. So whatever, if you're going to invest in training, in voiceover training, you want to do your research and who's going to be the best coach for you, or, which coaches, because I always tell people, don't just work with one coach, work with different coaches. Each coach is going to bring their own passion and their own know-how and their own magic to you. And, obviously look for the coaches that are going to empower you. When you do a demo, interview people, decide who's going to make the best demo for you. Make sure across the board that you work with people who are going to empower you, who are going to empower your own artistry, who's going to empower your own brand. It's really helpful to have a sense of what our strong points are and what our weaker points are. And really also the things that each voiceover artist does as an individual that is kind of your unique, I mean, I hate to say selling point because it really does make it feel like a business, but your unique special sauce, your unique things that you're good at or that that you'd be hired for. So, for example, there are a lot of women in a certain category with these wonderfully high-pitched anime voices. And it's just wonderful that they know that they're going to be able to play a lot of little girl anime characters for the rest of their lives, probably. We work on, stretching their capacities, but we know what's going to get them in the door is that unique voice print that they have that they're going to get a lot of work from. Same thing, younger guys who have this young, male, young 16-year-old, 18-year-old hero voice. And, there's some actors who have sustained that. Johnny Young Bosch can still do that thing. Yuri Lowenthal is known for that, and they've made careers on these young heroes. So again, I have, young male actors who come to me saying, I know I do this, and I want to, widen my horizons, but know what you're really good at. Know what your voice print is that can get you in the door. And that's the kind of thing also you want to put at the beginning of your demo. And I've also honed my skills, to be able to go into that nautical place, and then also to go into that old lady place. So what you want to do as a voiceover artist is play with as many different accents, as many different things as you can, but also know what your unique voice prints are and what you'll be hired for and known for. And then stretch yourself so that once you're in the studio, you can do all those other things and be hired for those. But know what your strong points are. So if you want to be where they're, I'd say if you want to be where video games are happening, you want to be in Los Angeles, New York to a certain extent, Texas to a certain extent. Animation, the same thing. There's going to be animation, anime, video games. There are places where you kind of need to be able to go in person. Once you become established in those fields, you can often work remotely, but not always. Myself as an established actor, there are a lot of games and animation that I can do remotely if I need to. I personally prefer to go into the studio. I have friends who live in smaller markets, and they have chosen to not go the anime, video game, cartoon route. But I have a lot of friends who are hugely successful books on tape. Commercials, you can record commercials as long as you have really good equipment and a good sound in your studio or even your closet. You can record a commercial as long as you have Source Connect and good equipment. You can record a commercial from anywhere in the world. And, thanks to the pandemic, it's become a common thing to have all the clients on Zoom. And you can record, $1 million commercials. So we've touched on this here and there, but I want to get very specific about it. People ask all the time, what do I need for a home studio? And there are sort of two levels of home studio, I would say. The first level is a home studio for auditioning. And for that, you just want a really good quality. For professional jobs where you're recording, I have to have the level of home studio where I can do state-of-the-art video games in my house. So I have to have very high-level equipment, and I have to have very good soundproofing. But if you're at the level where you're just starting out, you just need a pretty decent mic and pretty decent soundproofing. So I say to anybody who has this passionate dream about becoming a voiceover artist or any kind of artist or anything in life for that matter, I would encourage you with all my heart and soul to follow it. But at the same time, it's super important to have a realistic take on what you're going into to make sure that it's something that you are ready and willing to take on, to create, to build a voiceover career. Like so many other things, to become a doctor, you have to invest in medical school. You have to invest in that knowledge. You have to invest in, getting that degree. And you don't necessarily get a degree in voiceover, but you have to invest in your training and your education. If nothing else, you have to invest in a demo, which just one demo. Some people will go and, be an intern in a different studio so people get to know them. Some people will go in and say, can I sit in and, watch your recording? Some people will do a lot of networking on social media. And again, there are classes and courses and more information about how to market yourselves and network. But that's something that nobody's going to do for you. And that's something that, you think, well, I'm an artist. I just want to make voices and have fun. But as a sole proprietor, that's something that we need to look at and know that that is part of our business to do. It's important to me and to Strawberry Hill, the people that we coach and the clients and students that we have come in, that we give you a reality check about these things. Because in classes and in the world, a lot of people aren't aware of this financial situation and kind of go into it with wonderful rose-colored glasses, thinking, oh, this will be easy. I'll make the big bucks doing voiceover, which is not always the case. And it's good to be prepared. And that doesn't mean that it's not doable. It just means that you can walk into your voiceover career with your eyes wide open and be ready to take responsibility for all of these elements that it involves. I know people who have been fans, anime fans, and who have been so delighted by the anime world and who have wanted to become a voiceover artist, that they started their path as a voiceover actor. They started as a fan. And they would go to conventions and, come up to us, at conventions and say, how do I become a voiceover actor? And then they would take classes with those of us who give classes, and we would recommend them do other things. And then they would do competitions in conventions, and they would work on fan dubs, and they'd get better and better at fan dubs, and they'd build their skills that way. I know other people who come from a traditional acting school approach. You work with people and people recognize your talent, which is also why I tell people, make sure you get a solid foundation of training before you put yourself out there. Because once people hear you, that's how they're going to think of you. So you can always go back and they can see that you've evolved, but you also want to make sure not to burn too many bridges at the beginning and make sure that you're well trained so that people know that you're at the level that they can trust your talent for their project, because their time is also money, and anybody who hires you, that's their reputation on the line as well. Now, that doesn't mean that when we're beginning, we don't have our blind spots or we don't have our comfort zones. And if somebody pushes us out of our comfort zone, we'll tend to resist that. But I think that there's a lot of really wonderful coaches out there that can put you out of your comfort zone, but still make you feel safe and make you know that this is healthy and I'm learning something and it's positive. And I think that as artists, often we don't trust ourselves enough. So the very first thing I would say is trust your intuition. And when you get a hit that something is calling to you, follow that. And when you get a hit that something just doesn't feel right, trust that as well. The next thing I would say is make sure you study from industry professionals who have a track record, who who know what they're talking about. There are so many people out there who are teaching, or coaching, who don't really have that track record. So the information that they're going to share is either limited or dodgy or not worth your money. And be careful about that. Now, you might learn from some people who have cheap classes and don't have a lot of experience, but you feel like you are gaining something from them. And if that's the case, that's great. But I know so many, young voiceover actors or people who are in the business who have just spent their money on, classes and courses and stuff and really wasted their money. So make sure that you're choosy about who you work with. Look for people who are vetted in the, industry. Look for, if you can find reviews, or talk to friends and say, what do you like about this class or this person? And really make educated decisions about who you study with.